Step inside the year 2025, where prison walls hold criminals so terrifying, entire cell blocks quake in their presence. These men shape the underworld, orchestrating unstoppable violence from behind bars. Dive into shocking backstories, unimaginable power moves, and chilling reputations that refuse to die. Meet the most feared men in U.S. prison and discover what truly keeps everyone else awake. Number 1. Dairo Antonio Suga, aka Otoniel. Born into poverty in northwestern Colombia, Dairo Antonio Suga, often referred to as Otoniel, was drawn to war and clandestine operations from his teens. Enlisting at 18 in a revolutionary guerrilla force, he experienced armed struggle that left him both embittered and enthralled by power. When that rebel group disarmed in the mid-1990s, Otoniel refused to leave the life of secrecy and violence. By his early 30s, Otoniel rose swiftly within the ranks of what would become the Gulf Clan, Clan del Golfo, a Colombian cartel wielding massive influence over cocaine routes. His leadership style was as ruthless as it was effective. He demanded absolute obedience, imposed strict discipline, and rewarded loyalty lavishly. For over a decade, Colombian and U.S. authorities tried to apprehend him. Multiple raids came close, but Otoniel's knack for vanishing into remote jungle hideouts, guarded by an inner circle of heavily armed men, made him almost untouchable. Eventually, an intensive campaign combining Colombian special forces, drones, and intelligence intercepts succeeded in capturing Otoniel. Extradited to the United States in 2022, he now occupies a bleak cell, his once mighty empire in disarray. From one elusive kingpin to another, few criminals have mastered prison escapes like the notorious El Chapo. Number 2. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. Feared for decades, Joaquin Archibaldo Guzman Loera, better known as El Chapo, built an empire by transforming the Sinaloa cartel into one of the world's most formidable drug trafficking syndicates. Born to a poor family in Sinaloa, Mexico, Guzman was introduced to the illicit cannabis trade as a child. Ruthless but shrewd, El Chapo innovated by using extensive tunnels under the U.S.-Mexico border, some equipped with lighting and ventilation to ferry massive quantities of narcotics north. This ingenuity, coupled with his willingness to attack rivals mercilessly, earned him a global reputation. Forbes magazine once named him among the most powerful people in the world, reflecting both his wealth and reach. Infamous for his prison escapes, Guzman bribed guards to walk out of a maximum security Mexican prison in 2001. Recaptured, he later fled through a mile-long ventilated tunnel beneath his shower stall. Arrested yet again, he was extradited to the U.S., where his trial in Brooklyn drew worldwide attention. Convicted of a litany of drug-related charges, El Chapo now languishes at ADX Florence, a fortress-like supermax prison, a far cry from the labyrinth of tunnels that once facilitated his legend. Some figures incite terror by personal brutality, others through the illusions of celebrity. The next infamous name used to be recognized on television screens. Number 3. Michael Jace. Michael Jace, once celebrated for his portrayal of a dedicated Los Angeles police officer on the hit TV show The Shield, plummeted from admiration to infamy in a single, devastating act of violence. Born in 1962, Jace was a character actor who appeared in prominent films like Forrest Gump and Planet of the Apes. Quiet yet effective in his roles, he maintained an outwardly stable home life. That facade shattered the night he fatally shot his wife, April Jace, in their family residence. The subsequent investigation revealed disturbing details. Jace deliberately aimed the gun at her legs after firing a shot into her back, later admitting he wanted her to experience pain. Their young son, present in the home, reportedly heard his father taunt April just before pulling the trigger. During the high-profile trial, Jace's defense attempted to mitigate the murder charges by arguing emotional distress, but jurors were unmoved. The evidence pointed to jealousy and rage over marital difficulties. In 2016, Jace received a sentence of 40 years to life, a stark reminder that a polished Hollywood career can camouflage unfathomable darkness. Similarly, stardom cloaked dark secrets for this next figure, a sitcom star who faced a deluge of serious allegations. Number 4. Danny Masterson. Danny Masterson vaulted to fame playing the sarcastic, sharp-witted Stephen Hyde on That 70s Show. In the early 2000s, he was known as a charismatic comedic actor, DJ, and part of Hollywood's social scene. Yet behind the scenes, allegations of sexual assault brewed for years. Multiple women came forward, stating that Masterson had drugged and violated them in incidents dating back to the midpoint of his television success. By 2020, Masterson was arrested and formally charged. His high-powered legal defense insisted the encounters were consensual, arguing that the accusations were part of a media-fueled vendetta, but the evidence and testimony painted a pattern of exploitation, with victims alleging that Masterson used his status and associations, including ties with the Church of Scientology, to shield him from accountability. The drawn-out legal battle culminated in convictions for 2 counts of sexual assault. In 2023, Masterson was sentenced to 30 years to life, marking a sobering endpoint to his fall from grace. Hollywood, already rocked by the Me Too movement, saw his case as another milestone in holding abusers accountable. The once wholesome family reality persona also shattered for the man who epitomized squeaky clean living before his arrest. Number 5. Josh Duggar. Josh Duggar emerged as a prominent figure on the reality television series 19 Kids and Counting, which showcased the deeply religious Duggar family. In public, he presented himself as a devoted husband and father, often speaking about faith and conservative values. For years, the large family show attracted an enthusiastic fan base intrigued by their homeschooled lifestyle and Christian beliefs. However, beneath that pious exterior lurked troubling secrets. Decades-old allegations about misconduct toward underage girls, including some in his own family, surfaced in the media, resulting in the show's cancellation. But the most serious blow came years later when federal authorities arrested Duggar on charges of possessing child sexual abuse material. It shook the public, who had watched him sermonize about moral living. In late 2021, he was found guilty, and a judge sentenced him to more than 12 years in a federal prison. Soon after his sentencing, his projected release date was adjusted to 2032, though officials have not provided specific reasons. The case left many torn between the family's public image and the disturbing evidence presented in court. From reality show stardom to cinematic powerhouse, the next name stunned Hollywood with revelations that caused an industry-wide reckoning. Number 6. Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein once reigned as Hollywood royalty, a mega producer behind Oscar-winning films, revered or feared for his ability to launch careers and set cinematic trends. Co-founder of Miramax and later the Weinstein Company, his influence over movies was legendary, shaping the award circuit for decades. Lavish parties, glitzy premieres, and major philanthropic efforts made him a high-profile figure. Behind the scenes, however, Weinstein exerted a menacing form of power. In 2017, multiple women stepped forward, accusing him of sexual harassment, assault, and rape. Stories that had been whispered in Hollywood circles for years. The allegations spanned decades, revealing a pattern in which he lured aspiring actresses and employees into private meetings, leaving them traumatized. These revelations ignited the Me Too movement, encouraging countless survivors across industries to share their experiences. Weinstein vehemently denied wrongdoing, employing a staggering legal team to challenge the claims. Yet in 2020, a New York jury found him guilty of rape and sexual assault, resulting in a 23-year sentence. Later, a Los Angeles court sentenced him to an additional 16 years after another set of survivors testified. Not all Hollywood-related crimes end with decades behind bars, but the next star's fate was sealed by harrowing revelations too. Number 7. Kaylan Walker. Kaylan Walker's youthful charisma and growing fame as both a rapper and an actor initially suggested a future filled with promise. He landed roles in notable projects such as the film Superfly 2018. By his late 20s, his music career was also beginning to make steady strides, with fans praising his unique style. Yet beneath those outward successes lay a cycle of predatory behavior that would end in a harsh prison sentence. Court documents revealed Walker's repeated offenses, which included assaulting underage girls and incapacitating victims before molesting them. Already a registered sex offender since 2013, he had sidestepped major repercussions for years. When charges surfaced involving multiple victims, some as young as minors, investigators found his brazen pattern deeply disturbing. Walker often lured aspiring models and social media acquaintances, capitalizing on their dreams and trust. A Los Angeles jury convicted him on multiple charges, including forcible sexual crimes and assault with intent, handing down a sentence of 50 years to life. While some crimes unfold in secret, others burst unexpectedly into public spaces, as was the case with the next individual. Number 8. T.J. Lane. On February 27, 2012, in the quiet town of Chardon, Ohio, 17-year-old T.J. Lane committed a horrific school shooting that abruptly ended 3 young lives. Lane entered the cafeteria wearing a sweatshirt scrawled with the word killer, brandishing a .22 caliber handgun. The chaos that ensued left the community grappling with the incomprehensible grief. Lane targeted a group of sitting students, killing Daniel Parmenter, Demetrius Hewlin, and Russell King Jr., and wounding 3 more, one permanently paralyzed. Swiftly apprehended, Lane provided no clear motive. Rumors suggested bullying and a sense of alienation, though these explanations offered little solace. In the courtroom, Lane's demeanor turned hearts cold. Wearing a t-shirt again bearing killer and flashing grotesque gestures at victims' families, he displayed no remorse. The judge sentenced him to 3 consecutive life terms without parole. Yet, Lane shocked the public once more in 2014 when he escaped from prison, briefly roaming free with 2 other inmates before recapture several hours later. Chardon High School eventually rebuilt and commemorated those lost. Another story of teenage savagery emerged in Missouri, where a teen's diary detailed terrifying intent. Number 9. Alyssa Bustamante. Alyssa Bustamante was just 15 when she committed a murder so disturbing it made headlines worldwide. Growing up in St. Martins, Missouri, Bustamante battled depression and engaged in self-harm, hinting at deep emotional turmoil. On the surface, she was a typical high school student, but her internet persona suggested darker impulses, referencing cutting and the thrill of hurting others. In October 2009, she acted on these violent urges by luring her 9-year-old neighbor Elizabeth Olton into nearby woods. Once there, Bustamante strangled her, slit her throat, and stabbed her before burying the child in a shallow grave she had dug days prior, allegedly out of curiosity. Investigators later discovered her chilling journal entry. It was amazing. As soon as you get over the "oh my god, I can't do this" feeling, it's pretty enjoyable. Tried in adult court, Bustamante eventually pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, sparing herself a mandatory life sentence without parole. She still received over 30 years in prison, ensuring she remains behind bars for decades. Equally shocking was the younger boy implicated in a murder that ignited fierce debates over juvenile sentencing. Number 10. Lionel Tate. Lionel Tate holds an infamous distinction. At 13, he became the youngest American ever sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. The tragedy unfolded on July 28, 1999, when Tate was left in charge of 6-year-old Tiffany Unick in Broward County, Florida. Hours later, Tiffany was found lifeless. Her injuries were so severe that medical examiners compared them to those from a car crash. Tate claimed he had been imitating professional wrestling moves he'd seen on television, accidentally causing fatal harm. However, prosecutors argued that Tiffany's extensive injuries, fractured skull, broken ribs, and internal hemorrhaging reflected far more than child's play gone awry. In 2001, a jury convicted Tate of first-degree murder under Florida's felony murder rule. Controversy soon followed. Critics decried sentencing a 13-year-old to life without parole, citing his developmental immaturity. After appeals, an agreement led to his release in 2004, subjecting him to house arrest and lengthy probation. Yet Tate's legal troubles continued. He was arrested for armed robbery and violated his probation, ultimately returning to prison with a 30-year sentence. When siblings unite in violence, the ensuing bloodshed can stun entire communities, as seen with this next case. Number 11. The Bever Brothers. Robert and Michael Bever, aged 18 and 16 respectively, orchestrated one of the deadliest familicide cases in Oklahoma history. Known as the Bever Family Massacre, the shocking incident began on July 22, 2015, at their home in Broken Arrow. Motivated by a sinister ambition for infamy, the brothers meticulously planned to kill their entire family of 7, apparently with hopes of becoming famous online. On that fateful night, they lured their siblings into compromising situations. When alerted, their mother April confronted Robert, only to suffer dozens of knife wounds. Their father, David, and 3 siblings were brutally stabbed. Another brother, Daniel, desperately called 911 before the killers forced their way in, ending his life. 2 sisters survived. One was just 2 years old, spared, likely because she hid or was overlooked, and the other, 13-year-old Crystal, despite sustaining injuries, managed to identify the assailants. After the carnage, the brothers fled but were quickly intercepted by a police dog in nearby woods. Some teenage perpetrators act alone, while others kill guardians in horrifying acts of rage. Our next individual story is equally chilling. Number 12. Heavenly Arroyo. Heavenly Arroyo was 15 under her great-uncle's roof in Fall River, Massachusetts, when tension and frustration reached a lethal tipping point. Conflicts in the household simmered as her uncle planned a trip to formalize her custody, only to face delays. On October 6, 2019, that frustration turned deadly when Arroyo took a pair of scissors and stormed into the bedroom of 68-year-old Ana Vasquez Rodriguez. What followed was a vicious onslaught. The elderly bedridden woman was stabbed over 70 times. The sole witness, Rodriguez's grandson, remained unaware until after the act, wearing a gaming headset in another room. Arroyo then calmly showered, disposed of her blood-stained clothes in a dumpster, and claimed Anna was unwell. Surveillance footage contradicted her initial story about seeing a masked intruder. Cornered by evidence, Arroyo's demeanor in court was jarring. She reportedly flipped her hair and offered a chilling smile. By 2023, at 18, she faced second-degree murder charges, receiving life with parole eligibility after 19 years. The case disturbed both local residents and seasoned officers. Another teen's twisted path led to a gruesome collaboration in the name of a rebellious romance. Number 13. Sierra Hal. Tangled in a tumultuous custody battle and teenage rebellion, 16-year-old Sierra Hall ignited a storm of violence with her 18-year-old boyfriend Aaron Guerrero in Las Vegas. Forbidden to continue their relationship and outraged at parental interference, the couple hatched a plan whose brutality left authorities stunned. On April 9, 2021, they obtained a circular saw, blades, lighter fluid, gloves, and a drop cloth near Sierra's father's home. Daniel Hall, aged 45, was soon discovered stabbed over 70 times and then set ablaze. His body, shoved into a sleeping bag in the garage, showed signs of an attempt at dismemberment. Shockingly, Sierra and Guerrero recorded a video soon after, flippantly announcing, "Welcome back to our vlog, day 3 after murdering somebody." Their short-lived flight from justice ended with an arrest in Salt Lake City. The YouTube clip, used as evidence, exposed their chilling nonchalance. In May 2022, both pleaded guilty to 9 charges, including arson, robbery, and murder, receiving sentences of 22 years to life. Guerrero did voice regret in court. Sierra offered none. Parental conflict can also drive extreme conspiracies, like the teenage plot in our next story. Number 14. Roxana Sikorski. Adopted from Poland at 4, Roxana Sikorski appeared to have a second chance at life in America, but a combination of early trauma, reactive attachment disorder, and manipulative relationships veered her drastically off course. By 15, she fell under the influence of 23-year-old Michael Rivera, who fueled and guided her anger toward her adoptive parents. His plan was frighteningly direct: murder the family members who disapproved of their relationship. He taught Roxana vital points on the human body and insisted she strike like slicing a tomato. On an October night in 2014, Roxana crept into her younger brother's room with a fillet knife, slashing at his neck. His screams alerted the others, prompting Roxana to flee out a window and into Rivera's waiting car. Although the boy survived, the attack showed clear intent to kill. Prosecutors charged Roxana as an adult, emphasizing premeditation. Despite her parents' pleas and unwavering belief she'd been coerced, the court handed her 10 to 20 years for conspiracy to commit murder. Rivera received a life sentence. Just as chilling, the next figure was scarcely older when he destroyed a family's faith in neighborhood safety. Number 15. Eric Smith. Eric Smith was 13 in August 1993, living in the small, unassuming town of Savannah, New York. Youthful freckles and glasses gave him a harmless appearance, but that mask shattered when he lured 4-year-old Derek Roby into a wooded area, strangled him unconscious, then bludgeoned him with a rock. In a final, sadistic twist, Smith poured a soft drink from the child's lunchbox into the wounds. Panic spread as Derek never arrived at his summer camp. A frantic search ended just yards away, revealing the gruesome scene. While the community reeled in fear, Smith's eventual confession to his mother led her to contact police. The boy was tried as an adult, an unprecedented move that signaled the gravity of his actions. Despite attempts to explain his behavior, bullying at school, anger management issues, or neurological factors, no clear pathology fully accounted for such brutality. Found guilty of second-degree murder, Smith received 9 years to life. He spent over 27 years behind bars, repeatedly denied parole. Advocates argued that juvenile offenders can change, yet the horror of Derek's killing weighed heavily on any release decision. Eventually granted parole in 2021, Smith emerged into a world that still struggles to comprehend the depth of a child's capacity for evil. Another child murderer who stunned the nation was Joshua Phillips, whose horrifying discovery began with the missing girl search. Number 16. Joshua Phillips. In 1998, the disappearance of 8-year-old Maddie Clifton rattled Jacksonville, Florida. Neighbors scoured the streets. Among the searchers was 14-year-old Joshua Phillips, who usually appeared shy and courteous. A week later, Phillips's mother discovered a leak in his bedroom, only to find Maddie's lifeless body hidden under his waterbed. Phillips later confessed that a friendly backyard game of baseball took a tragic turn when he struck Maddie with the ball. Panicking, terrified he would be punished by his strict father, he dragged the injured child inside. But the horrifying story did not end there. When she began moaning under his bed, Phillips committed an even more unspeakable act, stabbing her to keep her quiet. Tried as an adult for first-degree murder, he was sentenced to life without parole. Public outcry arose, with some saying the case showcased tragic teenage fear and impulsivity. Others pointed to the brutality and repeated actions as evidence of deeper malice. Decades later, Phillips stated he'd nearly succumbed to suicidal despair behind bars. Appeals for leniency were denied, but the debate persists over whether children who commit catastrophic violence deserve permanent incarceration. Adult inmates can be no less horrifying, as shown by the next person who spent decades in the absolute depths of U.S. prisons. Number 17. Thomas Edward Silverstein. Thomas Edward Silverstein, born in 1952, grew up in a turbulent family setting that foreshadowed his later entanglement with criminality. By his teens, he was involved in robberies and violent acts, eventually landing in federal prison for armed robbery. But it was behind bars that his most infamous chapter began. In 1977, Silverstein killed fellow inmate Danny Atwell under unclear circumstances. Transferred to solitary confinement, he fostered alliances with dangerous prison gangs and orchestrated further violence. The most notorious incident occurred in 1983 when he and two other inmates murdered correctional officer Merle Klutz at the U.S. Penitentiary in Marion, Illinois. The brutality sparked monumental changes in the federal system, prompting new protocols for handling the most violent prisoners. Authorities deemed Silverstein so dangerous that he was relegated to a life of permanent isolation, sometimes dubbed no human contact status. He was believed to manipulate others even from within the tiny confines of his cell, fueling ongoing tensions. Throughout numerous court hearings, Silverstein argued that indefinite solitary confinement violated his constitutional rights, though judges upheld it due to his violent record. By the time of his death in 2019, Silverstein had become a macabre icon of the consequences of extreme prison violence. Some criminals wreak havoc inside prison, others manage mass terror outside. The next criminal was once the mastermind behind large-scale bombings. Number 18. Ramzi Youssef. Ramzi Ahmed Youssef, born in Kuwait to Pakistani parents, initially presented himself as a bright engineering student. However, ideological radicalization drove him toward orchestrating terrorist acts designed to kill indiscriminately and seize headlines globally. His infamy crystallized with the 1993 World Trade Center bombing, where a powerful truck bomb blew a crater under the North Tower, killing 6 and injuring over 1,000. Fleeing the country immediately, Youssef spent the following months plotting an even deadlier design, the Bojinka plot. Conceived with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, it aimed to bomb multiple airliners over the Pacific, invade the CIA's headquarters, and assassinate the Pope. But in January 1995, a fire in Youssef's Manila apartment tipped off authorities, who seized incriminating materials that detailed the plan. Youssef escaped to Pakistan, but was eventually captured in February 1995 with the help of U.S. Diplomatic Security Service and Pakistani intelligence. His trial in the United States revealed methodical cruelty and unwavering radicalism. Unrepentant, Youssef boasted about the havoc he wrought. The judge imposed multiple life sentences plus 240 years, ordering the toughest confinement conditions possible, ADX Florence. His domestic terrorism left deep scars, as the next name also did. Number 19. Terry Nichols. Raised in Lapeer, Michigan, Terry Nichols grew up amid anti-government sentiment that deepened after his brief service in the U.S. Army. There, he befriended Timothy McVeigh, another man disillusioned with federal power. Their bond intensified around conspiracy theories and perceived government overreach, particularly the events at Waco, Texas. Together, Nichols and McVeigh plotted an attack on the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, ultimately carrying it out on April 19, 1995. The massive truck bomb shattered the building's facade, killing 168 people, including 19 children. It remains one of the deadliest terrorist attacks on American soil. Nichols' role involved assembling bomb components and assisting McVeigh with logistics. His trial, separate from McVeigh's, revealed extremist survivalist ideologies festering for years. Despite proclaiming lesser involvement, Nichols was found guilty of conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction and involuntary manslaughter. Additional state charges led to consecutive life prison sentences. Imprisoned at ADX Florence, Nichols rarely speaks publicly. He's a haunting example of how fringe ideologies and resentment can coalesce into violent action. The next figure on our list is another individual fixated on power in an urban war zone, rose to infamy. Number 20. Jeff Fort. Jeff Fort rose to power in Chicago during the late 1960s, guiding a street group that would become one of the city's most feared gangs. As a young man with strong leadership skills, Fort had a striking presence that attracted followers from different neighborhoods. He took control of the Blackstone Rangers, a group originally formed to help the community, but eventually pulled into criminal activities. Under Fort's command, the gang managed drug sales, protected their area through violence, and gained a reputation so harsh that rivals thought twice about challenging them. Despite his menacing image, Fort also dreamed of uplifting the community. He launched social programs and even secured federal grants to establish youth centers and job training. But these funds landed him in legal trouble when authorities discovered they were being misused. At his trial, witness accounts painted Fort as a ruthless figure who prioritized power above all else. His legal battles ended in convictions that helped dismantle parts of the Blackstone Rangers' hold on the city. Though many saw him as a criminal mastermind, others believed he had the potential to improve local neighborhoods. In the end, Jeff Fort's impact on Chicago streets remains both feared and legendary.